Good evening. The internecine row inside number 10 might at first resemble a plot line from House of Cards, but it has deep implications for the future direction of the government, possibly for Brexit, and most certainly for the authority of Boris Johnson himself. It's hard to conclude at the moment that he is fully in charge of events, seemingly buffeted from one side by Dominic Cummings, leader of the Vote Leave tendency in Downing Street's backroom, and from the other side by a combination of the Parliamentary Party and several formidable women, including the Prime Minister's new press secretary, who appear to have had enough of the machinations and erratic messaging, not least over the pandemic. So now that Lee Kane, the outgoing Director of Communications, and Boris Johnson's long-serving Batman is on his way out, how long before Dominic Cummings follows suit? And how would his exit impact on the government's direction of travel? Rumours abound tonight. Our political editor, Nick Watt, is here. Nick, what's the latest you're hearing about Dominic Cummings?
Well, Kirsty, my understanding is that Dominic Cummings will be leaving Downing Street before Christmas. That has not been officially confirmed yet, but that is...
Thank you all very much indeed. The distress for families and their loved ones who are in care homes is one of the enduring and unresolved problems of the pandemic, with care homes often having different rules or having to improvise depending on facility, space and the level of infection. Many families have been barred from any meaningful contact, while often Zoom calls and phone calls are not suitable, and without regular family interaction, the mental and physical health of some residents has declined sharply. Well, at the beginning of the month, the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, appeared to acknowledge the extent of the problem and announced that in England, relatives would after all be able to visit their family in care homes, even in areas where the incidence of coronavirus is high. But as our policy editor Lewis Goodall reports, the rhetoric does not appear to be matching the reality. To desperate families that actually they were going to have meaningful visits. It was a false prospectus.
Of indoor visiting, so having screens present, or if you're doing garden visits, having the use of pods and those things. Well, you can't do that on the day.
It's that I'm sure when relatives are desperate, they think it's the care home's fault that you haven't got pods and you haven't got screens and the sun's coming in the window the wrong way.
Yeah.
Is saying that any relative who wishes to should be able to have a meaningful visit. Then surely it is incumbent upon the government to make sure that there is a testing regime available for every single care home. When the Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi, terribly sorry, when the Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's novel, set during the Biafran War, won the Women's Prize for Fiction 13 years ago, then called the Orange Prize, it opened a window on a vicious ethnic conflict which affected her own family deeply and which claimed more than 1 million lives through violence and starvation and left deep wounds in Nigeria. Adichie, who is now a global star and divides her time between America and Nigeria, has now won a second time for the novel Half a Yellow Sun. It's been voted by readers the best book of the prize's 25-year history, beating work by authors such as Zadie Smith and Rose Tremaine. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie speaks out on feminism and race issues, and most recently against the infamous SARS anti-robbery police units in Nigeria, accused of violence and intimidation. I spoke to her earlier today from Lagos and asked her if this special award was all the sweeter for having voted on by readers.